All right, welcome to our Week 4 KK Collision football show presented by KK Collision. Going to talk about the 1993 NWOAL season. We have some folks from Liberty Center and Wauseon here along with Cory Strock. I am Lynn Grohl, and I'm going to have Cory introduce everybody because you grew up with this crew here tonight, right, Cory?
Oh, man. I'm not at a loss for words very often, Lynn, but this is a special evening. This is a special evening because time gets away from us all, and to be able to reconvene here is really special to me. I have memories literally with every single guy sitting around here. So I'll start down here to my left. Keith Kern, Liberty Center High School graduate. Keith was a junior when I was a senior. Tyson Langenderfer, a great Wauseon Indian that I've known since Little League, and then became very close with him through high school. Griggs, a name we've talked about quite a bit the last couple episodes. Griggs really needs no introduction. One of the best, if not the best, three-sport athlete this area has ever seen. We'll get into that here in a little bit, but like Tyson, known Cory since Little League. When he was different than everybody else even then, and then throughout high school, even though we were competitors, just always had an affection for Cory. And then got to know his dad, Kim, really well, and just love the Griggs family. And we'll get to that story, and we'll see if Cory remembers it.
That was my first question.
Okay, I'll save it then. But he may or may not remember, but it happened, I'll tell you that. Down here to my right, three of my childhood friends, guys I played football with, Ryan Miller, who was a freshman when I was a senior, and then was on that great 93 team, made Liberty Center's first state final appearance. And Ryan, he was one of the guys when we were getting the pickup games going in the neighborhood. Ryan and his twin brother Rex were one of my first calls, so Ryan's been a dear friend of mine forever. Josh Carter was a junior when I was a senior, wore number 81. I remember everybody's numbers, and Josh was super fast, and I decided to try track also my senior year, and Josh was a great track athlete as well, and his dad Gary was one of our old-timer guests, and so Josh Carter was a great LC Tiger.
And made the trip from Cincinnati today.
And came from Cincinnati, Ohio, and I said, "You didn't come just for this, did you?" And he said, "Absolutely." So, and the funny thing about Josh, he was a man of few words in school, and he's landed on his feet. I had a nice talk with him. He's doing well. And then maybe, this is crazy, maybe my closest childhood friend growing up, when I say childhood, I'm talking age 4 or 5 through high school, Jason Miller, who we grew up next door to each other on Cherry Street, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole we won't go down. But known Jason forever. He's been all around the country, doing things professionally in that, and I was tickled to death when I learned that he and his family had moved back to home base here in Northwest Ohio. So it's great to see all these guys, and this thing could go sideways, but we've got some personalities and just some great guys that have done great things in their life.
Well, we have Coach Lindgren here to keep them in check.
Hey, Tyson, Cory, you guys remember Coach Lindgren?
Oh, yeah. No love lost.
Look at the daggers he's giving him.
No love lost, he says.
This thing should be like a 30 for 30.
It would, and honestly, the best course of action would be to have an unedited episode that's pay-per-view only, 18 and older, and we could all retire.
Yeah.
We didn't bring enough guys.
That's true. That's true.
We wanted to get some Montpelier guys here too. For full disclosure, they were unable to come, but they had a great season in 1993 as well, getting to the regional final. Cory, my first question, because Cory talks about this all the time. It was your sophomore year. I don't know if it was at their place or
it was at Harmon Field, Wauseon.
And you were you were beating them at halftime, and you walked up to him at halftime and said, "I thought you guys were good." And I've heard this story, 113 times.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I remember the game, and I know he picked me off for a touchdown. But
he also mentions that too.
Yep. there were those mistakes back then too, but yeah, I was pretty cocky back then. I mean, and we weren't we weren't really that great a team, but they came into our place and beat us. I can't remember the score, probably touchdown.
You pulled it up.
I had it earlier. I'll have to find it again.
It was probably a touchdown, but we had a chance to win that game. But yeah, that was a long time ago already. I'm sure I said it. I probably said a lot more things.
So
they had a couple defensive ends that year that ran me all over that place, and that was fun.
31-24 was the final.
Touchdown, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and that's, we rolled in there unbeaten in the league, and they were good. They had sophomores. I mean, they had a lot of good sophomores and juniors, and they're beating us at the half. And I'm jogging off the field. Remember that little place visitors went on the end of the field, that brick building? And Cory Griggs jogs up beside me and says, "I thought you guys were supposed to be good." And keeps running, and I'm like, what can I say? We're getting beat. So we did end up winning the game, and I said earlier in our podcast, I remember after that game thinking, oh my God, these guys are going to be good going forward, and the rest is history.
You can all chime in here, but going into that 93 season, obviously you Liberty Center guys in 92 got to the state semifinals. You got rid of this guy at quarterback.
That's why they advanced.
But, Cory and Tyson, you can talk too. Did you know going into that 93 season what you all could be and get to a state championship level type caliber game?
We, as first, second, third graders, talked state championship in elementary, so there was never any doubt what our goals were our senior year. I don't think I had a doubt.
I would say as a young guy on that team, that definitely the senior class, you could get that sense for sure. Somebody that didn't really know what was going on. I mean, those guys were very committed, and that was kind of the only way that it was going to be. We knew if we got in, we'd have a pretty good chance to make a run.
I think the 93 season, we had the advantage of having gone to the semifinals a year before with Tori's senior year. So we had a lot of confidence coming back that season. So we had high goals. We knew the league was going to be good that year too, so we knew we'd have, a lot of good preparation going into the playoffs with the league that year. So we had our sights set pretty high that season.
And Wauseon had never been to the playoffs before that 93 season. What were you guys thinking going into that year?
Well, very much similar with first, second grade. We used to talk about winning state in all three sports. Like, that's all we talked about. We would go to the state tournaments, basketball, football, baseball, and watch them even as young kids. And I'm not sure that stuff happens very frequently anymore. From just being around my younger kids, it's just different. And I think our class obviously was different. Their class was very different. Had the mindset of, we can't be beat. I wanted to revert back to that game that they beat us. Al Fuentes returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown. They kicked off to us, and I was gone. Nobody was even near me, and I run into my own blocker and fumble. so Cory's pick six wasn't the only reason he lost. True story.
I forgot about Fuentes. Yeah, he took the opening kickoff back, and we still trailed at the half.
Wow.
Good memory.
What was the score at half?
We were down a score or 10. I mean, we were down by a touchdown or more. What did it end up, did you say?
31-24.
21-10? Yeah, I mean, we had an uphill climb.
I think at least that year, 93, I think and nothing against Tori's class or my class either, but the 93 class, senior classes for Liberty Center and Wauseon, Montpelier, Archbold, they were all really, really good, close-knit people. I mean, core group was good players, in my opinion.
I think Patrick Henry even had a good season that year, if I remember right. Yep.
Well, that year, there really wasn't many gimme games in the league, and Delta hit us pretty hard. They were solid. Brian darn near beat us.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there was.
Green was tied with us at halftime.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. I don't remember what happened the night before.
But I think one of the things they talked about was when we were young, we were really close, like you guys said. But coming into '93 season, I don't think there was a lot of people in town that really knew what we had on our senior year, on the offensive line especially. We plugged in 2 new offensive guards, I think a new offensive tackle, and we really used that as a catalyst for what we did as a team. But I think it also drew us together more of a team too, because if you remember, our motto that year was family. And that's what we said after every practice. We did a family chant, and that's what really drew us together. You guys were the same.
Was Coach Emmons pretty calm at the halftime of that Evergreen game when it was tied up?
I went crazy at halftime, and he came in, he said, "Are you done?" I said, "Yep." He said, "All right, let's go." And that was it.
What'd that game end up, Tyson?
49-7. They're getting beat 7-6.
Yeah, 40. Yeah,
I think it was 5 touchdowns in the next 6 offensive plays.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sure you're itching.
I don't even have a single question prepared because I kind of lived it, with these guys. I was just a fuzz older, but I kind of lived it, so I kind of know the things I need to know and want to know. But for our listeners, when I think of that Wauseon crew going back to '93, I think of like Mark Emmons being like the head coach of the Miami Hurricanes, man. When I think of that group. These guys, Michael Irvin and those guys. And so talk about, but I also know, because believe it or not, I spent some time. What's that? No. You never broke the law. But I would spend time in Wauseon. Even when I went away to college, I'd come back some weekends and hang out with these guys in Wauseon. And the thing I remember about that group is they were as tight-knit a group. Like if you go over to Tyson Langenderfer's house, there might be 8, 9, 10 teammates there, and you'd have thought they lived there. So talk about how and why you guys were so tight.
Again, I think it's just, we all had the same goal in mind, and again, I'm not trying to talk about today's world versus back then, but Ben Meyer's a great example. When he transferred in, he was an all-league running back in the GOL, and he came over and he's like, "Man, you know how good you and I are going to be in the backfield?" And I said, "Hey, buddy," I said, "don't take offense to this, but you're going to play left tackle, man." He looked at me like, "What?" And I said, "Milne's a stud." And I said, "We need a left tackle, and you're him, and you're a middle linebacker." And he's like, "Whatever it takes to win." He had been around us enough to know how we felt and talked about. Again, winning was the only thing that mattered. I mean, it was the only thing that mattered. Nobody cared who scored or how many yards each guy had. Nobody cared about any of that. And for me, or to be able to go up to my teammates and say, "Hey, you're doing this or you're doing that," there was no offense taken. Like, they knew it was coming from a place of, "Hey, this is what we're going to do to win." And it's just different now. Like, I see it just doesn't happen like that, where teammates can say something to other teammates without taking offense to it, at least from what I've seen. And I think that was a big thing with our class. Like, everybody just understood, there were a couple guys, if they said, "Hey, this is what I think we should do," and they bought into it. And telling kids that, even at a young age, "Hey, you're going to be this, you're going to be that," even though at that time they probably weren't very good athletes, but in their mind, we always told them they were good. Eventually, they became good athletes. John Schindler is one that, he was with us all the time. He's a big guy, always growing up, not super athletic, and then just all of a sudden it clicked with him as a senior, and he was a stud. So, I'm sure you guys had very many stories exactly like that. Kids that growing up weren't the greatest athletes, but all of a sudden became a huge part of the team because they wanted to win, and they did what it took to become great.
I'm sure you guys are the same way now, but we still have a big group on, group text with all the same guys from 30, 35 years ago. We're all talking about the same plays. We're all every other day, bitching at each other about throwing pick six or whatever, giving up points, so we had to do too many up downs the next day because I threw another pick. But, that was the group. It was a core group, 16, 20 guys that were just so close. And, you know, they still are today, you know, and if you had a problem in your life, guess who's there? Those guys, it's the same deal.
I want to ask the Liberty guys. I remember vividly, and we'll get to the game specifically later, but when we lost to Steubenville Catholic Central, I was in the stands, and I remember I cried like a baby because you guys, who I played with, that loss was so devastating, and we were so close to winning the Golden Trophy, and didn't get it done. But rewind, because the class of '93, my class, we had some key guys. Cory talked about the defensive ends. You know, Ken Fetterman was a handful, and Al Fuentes was tougher than nails, and Bill Murray was a stellar lineman, and Jack Bartels, and we had some really good pieces, and then we graduated. How in the world did you guys take the next step, losing some of those guys I just mentioned, and then having sophomores be key contributors? I mean, Rex Miller steps into play quarterback as a sophomore. How did that happen? I mean, what were some of the keys for you guys regrouping that much after losing some of those seniors?
If you didn't hear that in the peanut gallery, Coach Lindgren said coach.
We all know it
Right.
besides coaching.
That's a good question, because that team had a lot of talent. That 92 team was talented. But the 93 team was very senior heavy. I think it was all seniors on both sides of the ball except for two spots. We had a junior and a sophomore on defense, and where the previous team was probably 50-50, juniors and seniors in the backfield. The backfield was the juniors. Of course, Keith and Chris were studs. So that definitely helped us.
You know, that winter before your senior year, Tory, if I remember correctly, we decided we wanted to compete in the state weightlifting competition. You guys remember this? Mm-hmm. And we had all the football guys in wintertime were all together. We were looking forward to the next year. We actually put ourselves into the state weight powerlifting competition just for something fun to do, and the guys that weren't doing basketball or wrestling. But I think it just started there. You know, everyone got stronger than heck, and we competed together, and that spilled into the summertime. And those guys were just ready to go when the two-a-days started.
I think there was a lot of things left over from the year before where those maybe incoming seniors that didn't play kind of understood what the culture was about and they were able to step in and play. And I firmly believe, too, in coaching, you're only as good as your seniors. And that's a credit to these guys. It was really easy playing with them. We do a lot of intentional stuff now in terms of trying to get underclassmen on board, but these guys just did it because that's who they were. It was truly a senior-led team, for sure.
I want to go back a little bit further in time. I felt like, I have a microphone, I'm going to say this at some point. But for me, and Keith will remember this, and Coach Lindgren, but really, in my mind, for me personally, where it started was the 1987 team. That was the team that kind of broke the tiger. They started winning. And Keith and I were managers, I guess they'd call us, or water boys. We were at every practice, every team meeting, and we saw Coach Lindgren treat those seniors, and that was, my brother-in-law was on that team, Mike Bonner. And so that team would come to my house after the games to watch themselves on Friday night. And so as a sixth grader, I got to watch them. And I feel like that started to build the culture from there. So Mike Bonner, Todd Dean, John Hart, Joel Zimmerman, Dave Sylvester, Greg Reard, that class right there, I feel like in my mind, started that culture that you're talking about. And just, I feel like it's just been carried on to today.
I could not agree more, Josh. Could not agree more. Great point.
What maybe set the culture standard for you guys at Wauseon, Cory and Tyson?
These guys. I mean, these guys started when you're talking about baseball, basketball, football. We had a class ahead of me that was fantastic in all of them. Coach Emmons was a huge part of our. He was tough as nails. We had a couple assistant coaches that were unbelievable. Brett Stouffer was probably one of the smartest football guys I've ever met. And the coaching started it. When we talk about culture, I think sometimes at least back when I was growing up, they'd say every team in the league would be good every 15, 20 years, and that's kind of how Wauseon's been. Hats off to you guys. You guys have hats off to Coach. You guys have been good for a long time, still are, and have a great culture with the young kids, bring them up, and we didn't have a lot of that. We did a lot of our stuff in the backyard, honestly.
Anything to add, or who maybe some guys at Wauseon you looked up to growing up?
Me?
Now, let me say, Josh mentioned the 87 Liberty Center team. The 88 team was really good with Jeff Jurasic, Scott Barrett, and those guys. But Coach Langenderfer will remember the game Ben Leatherman kicked the game-winning field goal in a muddy mess at Wauseon's Harmon Field. Chad Spatafor and Dave Sauber and some of those guys. Was Andy Steffi a quarterback?
Andy Steffi.
Yeah. Talk about some of those guys you looked up to.
Nate Weber was always a good friend of mine. He was a heck of a player. Joe Derringer was a really good running back. Troy Bannister was a heck of a lineman. Unfortunately, we didn't really watch many games. We played, I'm not sure what you can call it nowadays. You're not allowed to say it. We played that in the end zone. You know what the name of the game is.
Obviously, we all know our kicker, Colin, who kicked the game-winning field goal in the state final. He has like 15 brothers, so we were with them all the time. They'd always be beating us up when we were little. There were some really good athletes, some really good players throughout the years. But for us, that 93 year was the first time we had ever been to playoffs, so we didn't really get a taste of a bunch of it. I mean, there's been a lot of tradition in Wauseon, but I can't remember.
No, you mentioned a Spatafor. Was Pat Mellon hurt when you guys came over here and played, and there was a Spatafor that
Tony,
right?
Yeah, he was a phenomenal nose guard, first team All-State nose guard, and Pat got his appendix taken out, and we didn't have him for Evergreen, and then Liberty, obviously, it was Tony was a phenomenal player, but he didn't run 4.4 like Pat. Again, testament to our offensive line. I mean, and Liberty did exactly what probably anybody would do. They said hike, and they had guys running up the field and tackling me, and I didn't have the ball. It was a smart play. They were making him beat him, and he played great. Hard-nosed guy, still one of our best friends. Great athlete, great football player. Again, a testament to our line and how athletic our line is. You go back, and I go back and I'm talking about, like, telling Ben, hey, you're going to play offensive tackle. Like, if you watch our highlight film, you see linemen 30 yards downfield and we're still setting up blocks. I mean, that's just how athletic they are. We had kids that in most years would be starting running backs or starting quarterbacks playing on the line. I mean, to have that type of athleticism at every position, it's rare. Now, there wouldn't have been that many would have started in the league in '93 at running back because there were so many good players, but they were really good athletes all the way across the board.
Keith, I want you to talk about, I want each of you guys to touch on it, because you each have a rich family history. Cory, you do too with Rick Volk. We want to ask you about that, your Uncle Rick. But Keith, talk about the Kern family tradition. Everybody talks about Kip Kern, and your Uncle Barry was a tough son of a gun, and your dad, and so you come from a long line of football players. What was it like growing up in that family, and did you ever feel any pressure to kind of live up and carry the torch?
Well, I only knew sports and football and baseball and so forth from day one. My dad coached me all the way through school, so I had the blessing to play for my father. Sometimes, bittersweet at times, but I wouldn't change a thing. My grandpa Kip, it seems like everybody knew who Kip Kern was just because he loved the kids so much and loved football so much and didn't miss games. And we had the opportunity to have the blessing to name the field after him a couple of years ago. And so I was sort of brainwashed. I was going to play football no matter what, but I loved it. I didn't know any different. I was a ball boy from, as Josh was saying, from kindergarten on. And it's kind of fun to watch Coach Langenderfer come in and my dad and build a program. We weren't very good in the early 80s when those guys started coaching. And then like Josh was saying, in 87, we started to turn the corner, and that was pretty cool. Man, that got me hungry to want to win ball games and want to play for Liberty Center and want to be a football player. So, Kern's still kind of synonymous with Liberty Center. I haven't lived over here in probably 30 years. Asked me, hey, how you guys doing? And then we're talking about Liberty Center football, right? So I might be thinking they're talking about my son or something else, but no, they want to know how Liberty Center football is doing. But yeah, there's a lot of tradition here, and it just it continues on.
Very good, Keith. Ryan, like Kern, there's certain names in certain towns, okay? Kern, Miller, for crying out loud, Davis, names like that. So Ryan, your dad Terry was a great Tiger, Uncle Rick, Randy, Tom, all those Millers. What was it like growing up? Because there were some expectations on you and your brother Rex. What was it like growing up in Liberty Center and trying to carry the banner for your family?
I don't know that it's, carrying a banner maybe is a little extreme, I guess, but the nice thing was my dad coached the quarterbacks, and my brother's completely different than me. So they took care of those things at home a lot of times, and I would just kind of stay out of the way. But having my dad as a coach was a fantastic experience, and then obviously my twin brother playing, and a lot of Millers on the field too. But I think the biggest thing is there's just so much support in the community. I don't know that anybody really feels pressure, so to speak, but just the idea that they're behind you, and you can go out there and do what you got to do, and as long as you put your best effort forward, I think everybody's good with that.
Jason, talk about being a Miller playing football at Liberty.
Well, I was just talking to Carl about the old-timers football that they started in the 70s, and the Carters were a big name too, but it was nice. I had the privilege my senior year to play with three of my cousins. I played with Ryan and Rex, and we had Nick Miller, who was a freshman that year, and Terry was one of the coaches. So it was an incredible experience. The family loves football, and it played out, and it was great to be able to experience that with everybody in the community as part of it.
And then Josh, your dad Gary was a tough son of a gun, and his brother Dale and Carl Carter. You come from a football family too. Talk about that a little bit.
And Roger, we can't forget.
And Roger.
Yeah, and I was sitting here thinking about it. I think I was the first Carter then after you guys played. It must have been a gap there. So. But like Ryan said, the community supports you, the Carter family supports you. You just get support from everywhere in Liberty, so it's not hard. All you got to do is put in the work. There's plenty of support.
Tyson and Cory, talk about your families a little bit, the way you were raised. And Cory, we'll start with you. Your uncle Rick Volk, he was pretty significant in Michigan history. What was that like? Because you were kind of labeled, I remember hearing it when I was younger, that, hey, his uncle's Rick Volk, and, my dad would tell me that and stuff. I'm like, man, he comes from good stock. What was that like?
It really didn't change any expectations for me, but it's always neat to have that, the people like that with that kind of pedigree to lean back on, ask questions, see how, especially when you get older and you get into recruiting and stuff like that. And he's always been there. But how neat is it to grow up with an uncle that was an All-American at Michigan and, All-Pro for the Baltimore Colts, played in Super Bowl III, played in Super Bowl V, played in Super Bowl III against Joe Namath when he guaranteed the win, and got knocked out and got roses sent to him by Joe Namath while he's in the hospital. You just hear some of those stories, which are cool. But he was just such a nice person, and that's kind of what, you know, I think he took all the nice because I was the cock. And, but I don't know. There was really never any expectations, and I don't know how any of you guys feel about, you know, how your families were. But really, the way I was brought up with my dad, you know, my uncle, my mom was a coach for Miami, Ohio, when they first started swimming back when women were first allowed to, you know, be athletes. But you know, really all I ever knew growing up was between the lines. You know, between the out of bounds lines in basketball, football, and between the foul lines in baseball. That's what we grew up with, and that's what we practiced, and that's what we did, and we fought and we beat the heck out of each other, and you know, and then when you're walking off the field, you give each other a hug and go get ice cream at Tiny's. That's what we did.
Tyson?
My dad went to Evergreen, so his memories of football, he used to tell me he played quarterback, he'd say hike and there'd be 11 people laying on top of him. Unfortunately, he didn't have a lot of success, but he still loved it, played. My uncle was a really good running back over at Evergreen. I think they were a little bit better when he played, but yeah, I guess, I don't know, growing up, I mean, it was more us together as more than our families, I think. You know, I can remember when we would cancel baseball practice. Hey, baseball practice is canceled, and I'd call everybody and we'd go play. there was never a day off. We didn't look at it like that. We were just having fun. So, but getting back to, you know, one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit about is the community that we had behind us and that you guys had behind you, Montpelier. I just coached my youngest son's flag football game, or tackle bar game, this past Saturday, and I told them the last time I was there, when we got off the bus at Montpelier, it was 8 deep on the track when we got off the bus. It was crazy. The environments that we were fortunate enough to play in, and those environments don't happen with just one good team in the league. You got to have the league that we had, which I might be biased, but I think it was probably the best league to ever come through this league by a mile. I mean, those are really good teams. I heard there were some people talking about this past week, this year's Liberty Center team beat us. I said, shoot, they wouldn't beat the Liberty Center team we beat.
Careful, you get in trouble, man. People are sensitive.
You know, I'll add to that. When we were playing the state championship, we played back-to-back with Wauseon that year. So they had maybe the 3 o'clock game, we had the 7 o'clock game, roughly around that time. And I remember getting off the bus. We were running late that day. I think our bus was late getting to the games, but we were there towards the end of the game, and all Wauseon, basically all Northwest Ohio was there. And I thought that was pretty special to have back-to-back games in Massillon. And I remember you guys kicking the field, or something happened, you missed the field goal, then you made the field goal, and all that was going on right when we got there, and that was pretty special for us to see you guys win that, knowing we had the next game, and most of those fans stuck around. It was just a pretty unique, special day of football for Northwest Ohio.
Yeah, I think it was the largest crowd in Division 5 at the time.
I think we did, yeah.
And my nephew played in the state championship game with St. X 7 or 8 years ago, and it was still 5th at that time in the record books. Largest crowd.
Wow.
For Division 5.
Yeah, and that's just because you guys were there, and I think everyone just stuck around to watch the game, and it's pretty cool experience.
It was very unique. Also, just, you know, when we played you guys on the field, it was, we wanted to kill you, and you guys wanted to kill us. And 2 hours later, you could be hanging out with them at a party. You know, I mean, I don't know if that's normal anymore, but that's how it was. We were friends with a lot of the places around, a lot of the other people around the different towns that you hated an hour before. Made it special. But, and it's still special today.
Yeah, you guys all knew the girls from Wauseon, we all knew the girls from
We just feel better.
I'm going to take a break, Danny, for KK Collision here real quick. KK Collision is a leader in the auto repair industry that has been servicing Northwest Ohio's auto needs for over 27 years. We offer a fast and reliable repair option that stands above the competition. When your vehicle enters our facility, you can be assured that you have chosen the most technologically advanced repair facility in the area. KK Collision is an automotive body and mechanical shop, as well as both a light and heavy-duty towing service located in Liberty Center. Our towing services cover Northwest Ohio and the surrounding area 24 hours a day. Are you in need of a repair estimate? Visit us anytime during business hours for a free estimate at T556 Ohio 109 on the north side of Liberty Center, or call 888-533-7801 or visit our website at kkcollision.com. Thank you to Kyle Kern at KK Collision for sponsoring our football show every Monday night this season. We will have a Wednesday show in October. We'll have the great Tim Beckman from St. Henry on. And next week we have Mark Emmons, you guys' former head coach, is going to join us from down in Florida via video. Looking forward to that.
I had that, and I want to hear from the Liberty Center guys too, talk about Coach Linger, and I want to start with the Wauseon guys. Talk about playing for Coach Emmons. He was a bad dude at BGSU. I don't know if you guys knew that when you played for him right away, but in my coaching career, I had the opportunity to coach against him. And I respected him probably more than anybody I ever coached against. He was such a classy guy, but he also got the most out of you guys. Talk about what it was like playing for Coach Mark Emmons in your heyday.
Coach Emmons, just a phenomenal person, phenomenal human being. I would say that one of the best things about Coach Emmons, obviously he taught you the way he wanted you to do it, but he was open and willing to change things. If you said, hey, I think this might be a little bit better way to do it, or this could possibly work better. And, Dan Burkholder, Coach Gase, Bill Gase, and Coach Stouffer as Cory talked about, they just all four phenomenal human beings, coached for the right reasons, wanted to win, they understood us, they would let us influence some of the things that we did, and I just think all those things are extremely important to listen to your players. The players sometimes know a little bit, but at the end of the day, they had the last call, and they were all phenomenal people to play for, just great human beings. And I remember we always used to talk about, everybody would go to my house before the season to get their hair cut, and we used to do like the bowl cut, whatever, and do a mohawk, oh no, every year, no, our senior year, do a mohawk. I said, all right, mow it down. So I'll never forget, I walk into the school with this big mohawk. It just looked absolutely horrific. And first guy I see is Coach Emmons, and I'm looking at him, and he's not saying anything. I walk all the way past him, he doesn't say anything, and he gets about 10 feet past me, and all I hear is, the Mark Emmons laugh, it was like, pretty cool.
Cory, what do you remember about Coach Emmons?
Well, Coach and I are great friends to this day. When we're down in Florida, we try and have dinner with him and his wife, my wife and I, and we talk on the phone probably once or twice a month, and just a hard-nosed guy. But he was, for me, and for Tyson and all the other guys too, he was a player's coach. He knew what it meant to play as hard as you can. He knew what it meant to win a ball game. He knew what it meant to come out, play a tough team, and punch them in the mouth. He knew it because he did it. And there were a lot of times where I'd mouth off and get a flag or get a late hit or something, something like that. And he'd get on me or pull me out of the game because back then if you got kicked out of a game, you had to sit out the next game, right? Well, he didn't want any of us to get kicked out. We have to sit out. And I'm watching a highlight of him before the state final or something. There was a highlight, like a story about him. And there's a highlight of him making a play in the backfield against Miami, Ohio when he was playing at BG, and he's pointing his finger right in this guy's face. Just talking trash to this guy. And I said, well, how come you can do it and I can't? He says, Griggs, I was asking him out to lunch. I said, yeah,
I bet you would. But anyway, we're good friends. We still talk a lot, and he loved his players, I can tell you that. And, you guys all know that. Heck, that year, well, for a long time, because you guys were all around for a long time, but man, look, there's some legends coaching in this area, in this league, for real.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Coach Jensen had just kind of gotten his start, 91?
Yeah, my junior year was his first year at PH, would have been 91. 91 season, yep.
Yeah.
Keith and Ryan and Josh and Jason, I don't care if he's sitting here, pretend he's not. He can't do anything to you now, you understand? What was it like playing for Coach Rex Lindgren?
I loved playing for Coach Lindgren. There was nobody you wanted to play more for. He'd run through a brick wall for the guy. He'd get us so fired up for games. To this day, I wish you could give me a pep talk before I get up for work in the morning, Coach. No, I'm just being serious. Friday nights and actually from Thursday night on, just the kind of games. But Coach Lindgren was somebody that I believe everybody wanted to play for, and he would do anything for, and I don't know, just a great experience. You just got us fired up, Coach. We really loved playing for you.
Awesome. Keith. Brian, what was it like playing for Coach Lindgren?
I think, if you look at his philosophy, and the good thing about good coaches is you don't have to guess, where they're at. I mean, you're pretty, he wanted his team to be the toughest team on the field. That was going to be a given, an expectation. He was big into conditioning. It was never going to be where we got worn out. He wanted us to give everything. And here's a story, too. So I'm up in the press box last Friday, and we're playing Otsego. We're up 33-0, and they got a running clock now in the second half. So Otsego's driving, and they're inside the 10, and he's 2 feet away from me, taps me on the shoulder, let him score. I went, what are you talking about? So that would remove the running clock in the second half, so our guys could get more work. So in addition to the toughness and the conditioning, he finds ways to win. And it didn't matter. I mean, maybe he bends the rules a little bit here and there with what it was, but he wants to win. So I would say those are the 3 things that really stick out.
That's outstanding, Ryan. Josh?
Well, he was already legendary before I started playing for him, from stories my dad would tell me. And that 6th grade year really locked it up for me. Coach has had a profound effect on me, just like he has a lot of kids in Liberty Center. Probably none more than that 6th grade year, though, watching him push those seniors. But one thing he'd tell us a lot is that high school football is 80% mental, 20% ability. And I believed him on that, and I kind of believed him on that for the rest of life. And it's kind of applied really well for me, so I appreciate that advice. But he also gave one of the most epic halftime speeches in the Pilger game that I cannot repeat right now. But I can tell you, every one of us here remember what he said.
That's awesome, Josh. Jason?
Yeah, I think the physicality is really what he helped bring to us. I think our practices were some of the hardest hits that we'd had all year. I'm sure they can't do this anymore, but we had something on Monday practice called Bloody or Buddy, and it was just running at each other as hard as you could. And that was still a toughness. And for me, Coach Lindgren was also not just a leader on the football field, but a leader of men. And something I'd like to share, I got in trouble my senior year, and I had to miss part of the season. And I went to Coach Lindgren's house before the season started and asked him if I could still play. And truthfully, I had no business being out there, and there was no reason for him to let me because he had a great team. And he let me on that team, and I worked hard, and I was able to get back on that team, and I wouldn't be here and been able to have some of the success and be able to do some of the things I've done in my life if it wasn't for that lesson right there. So thank you, Coach Lindgren.
That's fantastic. And I just want to add I could talk for days on the Coach Lindgren topic, but I want to echo something Keith said. When you played for Coach Lindgren, you wanted to win, but more importantly, I think, I didn't want to let him down. You know what I mean? And you never wanted Coach Lindgren to think you were soft. And you never wanted to let him down, and he was the greatest motivator that I've ever come across in my life. And one of my favorite, he'd get you so fired up at pregame, but I remember one pregame, I'll never forget this, he's in there, and he would start out real calm. Okay, talking about fatigue makes you a coward, and he had all these catchphrases. He'd start out real calm, and then he would build it up. And then we were getting ready to break the huddle, and he meant to yell, "Let's come out like a bat out of hell." And he got going too fast, and he said, "Let's come out like a bat." And we're looking at each other going, "The hell's coming out like a bell mean?" And then we're like, he meant to say bat out of hell. But I'm sure we won that night. That's a true story.
I want to go through you guys' schedule while we have you here. You guys started with Nora and you guys started with Fairview. And if there's something that you remember from those games, just chime in. 1-7 over to Nora. You guys rolled over Fairview. Then you guys had Montpelier week 2, and that didn't end up real well for you guys. What do you remember from that Montpelier night?
It hurt physically. I remember that. They came right. You know, what's interesting with Montpelier, when we were younger, Montpelier was not really a school that those games would be over in the second quarter. And then it was your senior year. That game was close, if I remember right.
14-8 at home.
Yeah. So that was really kind of a surprise. You know, I think we knew they were good, but man, they were ready to play. That's what I remember.
Yeah, I don't have any good memories of that game, so. No, they were good. David Rose ran all over us that game, and that was a big wake-up call for us, and we had to make some changes and kind of get refocused and then set the tone for the rest of the year for Liberty.
Anything else you guys remember from that night? I'm going to throw in there? No? Good. You guys got Napoleon week 2, 35-8. Then you got Swanton 51-0. You guys beat Evergreen 55-7. The Delta game was 28-13 for Liberty. You guys had PH the next week 41-21. Bryan 46-7. Swanton was 40-7. Ottawa Hills was 48-0. Montpelier 41-6 for you guys after the Bryan win 46-7. How did you? Because Montpelier, they had a great team that year. That was the fewest amount of points that anybody allowed that season. Was the 6 that you held them to?
Guess what it was? Pick 6.
Was it? Was it? Okay. Your defense didn't give up nothing then.
The two best teams in that league, besides us, Liberty Center and Montpelier, didn't score any offensive touchdowns against us. They didn't score any offensive points against us.
How did you control David Rose that night, Tyson?
Well, I'll tell you that the Montpelier game was the one game that I say it all the time, we would have beat the NFL Pro Bowl team that night. We were just ready to go, ripping the sinks off the walls, ripped the shower heads off. We got like a $15,000 bill sent to Wauseon after that. It was crazy. We were more ready for that game than even the state championship game, and it was by a mile. I know in the expositor, all the people picked against us. We didn't like that very much. I remember Mr. Sevenek, he used to coach, but he came up to me and said, "How many touchdowns David Rose is going to score?" I said, "There is no chance he's scoring." He's like, "What? He's scoring 5-6 touchdowns a game." I said, "It's not happening. He's best running back in the league." And I said, "No. I line up behind the best running back in the league every day in practice." Talking about Milne and David was phenomenal. I do remember one play, he was held up, but I think 2 guys had him held up, and I come flying in, and I hit him as hard as I could, and it was like, he didn't hardly move. I thought, well, this guy's a different bird. He was one heck of a player, he was, but we were just really ready to go that night. That was probably the best game that we've ever played, I would say, as a team. It was awesome. It was fun, just ready to go.
Did that early loss for you Liberty Center guys against Montpelier, did that dent your confidence at all that season?
I don't think so. We had a similar experience the year before and still won in 92. They beat us early, and that was the last game we lost until the state semis against St. Henry that year. So I think we felt like, okay, well, we've been down this road one time, let's do this again. So I don't think we lost any confidence, we just had to buckle down a little bit. And Montpelier was very good, and we knew that. And you talked about some of the other teams that were, talk about the league area. Delta was a close game for us for a while. I remember, who's it, Lance Eisel, I think? Yeah, Wolford was another. They had some good players at Delta. It was just across the board, the league was phenomenal that year.
Bunch of tough guys.
Yeah. And you guys met the next week, right here in Liberty Center. What do you remember from that night, 20-0 Wauseon?
I'd like to hear from everybody on that.
Yeah, I would too.
I remember hanging with you guys for a while. First of all, we had practice that week. I remember the coaching staff, it wasn't Coach Linger, I think it may have been my dad actually. Wauseon this, Wauseon that. They were so tired of Wauseon. All we hear about is Wauseon. It's time for us to, to try to put you guys in your place. So we're getting preached at during the week. I remember we hung with you for a while, and I think you guys, if I remember correctly, had some sort of reverse pass. It was like a reverse, I don't know, do you guys remember what play it was? But we hung for about a half, and then that reverse pass for a touchdown. I don't know what it was, some sort of reverse pass.
It was a
Throwback or something. Oh yeah, it was you scored in Cory.
That was the problem. It was a perfect pass, all these touchdowns I get. He can't even get in the end zone for me.
But anyways, I remember that kind of broke our backs and we couldn't hang after that, but we felt like we played you guys pretty tough for a good portion of that
It's
game.
funny you say that because Spatafor, after that game, he said, I didn't know if we were going to win until we ran that play.
Yeah.
Cory, Tyson, what do you guys remember about that game?
Well, we knew Keith and Ward were going to be a handful, and not having Pat was obviously a huge blow for our offense. Again, we were prepared. We had confidence in Tony though, and we kind of had an idea of what they were going to do defensively, and we knew Tony was going to have a big game, and he stepped up, and our line played great, and obviously our defense was obviously very good that day too. One other thing I remember about that game, Keith tackled me the one time, and I got a personal foul in that game. He tackled me, and he's grabbing a hold of my calves and pinching the heck out of me. I stood up, I whipped the ball right off him, and I get a flag. I'm like, what do you mean?
It's always the second man.
Cory knows I wouldn't do that.
No, that's not the Keith Kern I grew up with.
He wasn't grabbing his calves either.
That is great.
I think for us in that year, that game was an awesome environment. You guys still do it, and we did back then too. The whole town's there. It would be like the best time to rob a bank because the cops are there, everybody's at the ball field, nobody's in town, right? But our defense, we had some tough guys. On our ends were tough, our linebackers were tough. We had Spat, who was a running back, played running back that game too, but my senior year, he was a defensive player of the year, Division IV. We just had, our defense played so good, and I don't think our defense ever got enough credit, but, you hold, I think David Rose, we talked about Montpelier, I think he ended up with like 105 yards and 60 of them were on the last play of the first half when we were playing kind of prevent. But the game against Liberty Center, I would say that game and at Napoleon my senior year were probably the two most physical games I've ever played. And that's hats off to you guys. Your guys' defense was great. You guys are running, student body. Looks like the whole town of Liberty Center's coming at you. And then you got freaking Kern with his neck roll on, and freaking Ward with his neck roll, freaking cutting back, crack, freaking blocking me. Damn, dude. I broke my ankle like 8 times. But no, that was a tough physical game, and you guys were good enough to win state in your division. We all knew that. I mean, we knew it when we left. I mean, we had guys, back then they didn't do the concussion checks and all that, but heck, we had 4 or 5 guys on that bus didn't even remember the game. And that's honest. That's honest.
And if you want to watch that game, it's on LC Tiger Sports Live on their YouTube channel, and there's a YouTube video. I was actually just watching it over the weekend, your season in '93. There's a YouTube video with highlights that the TV station in Wauseon did. But if you do a search for, I think it's Mark Emmons' 1993 state championship team, and if you go to LC Tiger Sports Live, you can see all of those games as well.
I gotta go look at that '93 game. What do you guys remember about the '93 Liberty Center Wauseon game?
My biggest memory is, because it was at our place, just feeling there when it was pretty much over, the tomahawk chop at our place, and that still rings in my head from time to time. No, they were good.
Back then, the players didn't really see much film. But you don't have the access you do nowadays. It might have been a blessing, because we weren't afraid. We thought we had a chance. But we watched you guys in the playoffs, because I think you guys played on Saturday night, and we played on Friday, so we would go to your guys' playoff games. And I was blown away by how fast Wauseon was watching them in the playoff games. And it was Wauseon, and then the other team was just slow. And I remember, Cory, you probably remember this one. I don't remember what playoff game it was, but you had everybody spread out 60 yards ago for a touchdown. I don't remember if you were under center or shotgun. You just took the snap and ran straight up the field. But we touched way faster than everybody. And that would have been intimidating, I think, if we would have seen that as high school students. But we weren't afraid. We thought we could hang with you guys. We were pretty fast, too. I actually played my best game against Wauseon, probably. I hit Langenderfer for a 3 or 4 yard loss on the option, so I think your coach thought, well, we're going to get him then. So you faked it and threw a pass, and I picked it off on you.
That doesn't surprise me.
The problem was, though, I wasn't coordinated enough. I wasn't coordinated enough to keep my feet, though. I just fell down with it.
Actually, I was throwing left-handed my whole career.
One play of that game that for some reason our coaches thought, hey, they're just going to run and tackle you, so just run out to the side like you're going to catch a pitch instead of blocking the defensive end. And it's like the second play of the half, and I'm running, and your guys' defensive end was not buying it. Just Cory's blind side, and I said, "Look out!" And he just gets leveled, and he said, "Did Cory catch it?" I said, "No, but Jared did." He said, "What do you mean, look out?"
Oh my goodness. Cory, one play. Are you going to ask him about the tournament trail?
Yeah.
Because I followed, and the best part about that is I could go watch Liberty on Friday, and then I didn't miss a Wauseon game all the way through the state finals. Even went to Berea, and Normie Zeider and I got a hotel, and we stayed in Berea when they played at.
The weather was pretty nice that night, wasn't it?
God. Yep, we followed Wauseon the whole way because I knew these guys well, and I think it was a Worcester Triway game where Cory just took the football from their big, bad stud fullback.
It's like Christian Okoye.
Yeah, he just took it from him because they were down and out, man. Things weren't looking good, and Cory said, I got to do something about that. He just took the ball from him and went the other way.
Yeah. You guys were down a couple scores, weren't you, in the fourth quarter in that Triway game?
We're down 19-6.
Okay.
Yep. 131-19, I think.
Cory, do you remember taking the ball from that guy? What were you thinking? Just, I have to make a play?
Well, I don't know. I think Tyson probably taught me how to do that years ago, But
and that dude was like 250, wasn't he?
This guy was I can't remember,
Mark Katosik
or something.
He went to Penn State.
Yeah, they were running the ball down our throats for about the first half, and suddenly we decided we probably shouldn't let this guy run, downhill. Maybe we need to get him going sideways a little bit. And he went sideways, and I just stood him up and pulled it out. I actually fell on that one. But that was the play after. There was a pick six, the play before that on defense. That kind of got us back in the game, and then that fumble, and then, the rest was history. Then you start pitching it to Ty and Pat, and they start running around. But that was one of those games, and I think if you know, we've won a couple state championships in different sports here and there, and we've lost a couple too, but it's one of those games where you gotta get lucky once. You know, or have one of those games that something out of whack happens that gets you past that one, and that was the one, because after that I think we had a pretty good idea where we were going. We came on to that Snow Bowl in Berea, like you're talking about, and played against a team that had, you know, a handful of D1 guys going to, you know, Illinois and, you know, Missouri and all these places, just big, strong guys, and you know, it's just one of those things. That playoff run was a lot of fun, but heck, you know how football bounces, could have bounced the other way, and we wouldn't be talking about it. But that's what happened. A lot of fun.
The Youngstown Ursuline game, snowing, ice, and probably everybody thought, oh, you're going to run the ball. You guys went to a passing attack that right?
Yeah. Yep, we came out, and Coach Emmons and I were talking. We had a center, Chris Warwick, who's fantastic, one of the smartest football players obviously I've ever seen. I've played with a ton, but asked him, hey, can you snap the ball in this weather as far as like shotgun? We came out, went shotgun right at him. Defense again played great, but we also had a booster. Our booster club bought us all new cleats, playing on turf, 2-3 inches of snow or whatever. They bought us all new cleats. We had, and Youngstown Ursuline came out, looked like they were running on ice skates. Youngstown Ursuline was sliding around, all these great big, great athletes. But yeah, that was a fortunate one too.
I remember when I was at your house a couple years ago, Tyson, when I talked to all you guys, there was a late 3rd and 3 with like 2 minutes left, and Coach Emmons wanted to run it. Can you tell that story again for those people listening, because it was pretty good?
You better tell it. Coach got mad at that about me.
Well, we have a 3rd and short against them, and it's late in the game, or we up a score, whatever we are. We need the first down. It's 3rd and short.
To end the game.
Yeah, to end the game, so we can run the clock out. And there's a timeout. Come over the sideline, and I had already, we had already decided we were going to pass it. Tyson and Coach was like, no, we're not throwing the ball, not in this weather. If it's incomplete, then they're going to have time. And he's blah, 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 blah. He's like, what if he drops it and all this stuff? And so we're standing there, and Ty and I are walking away, and Coach Emmons says, hey, don't drop it.
He says, you better catch it. He already knew we were changing it.
Because he knows the call's getting changed at the line, but ended up working out, got the first down. But yeah, those are the kinds of things that we had to, he gave us a lot of, make our own decisions a lot of times. Yeah.
You guys weren't that fortunate to have the autonomy to make your own decisions, were you? Would Coach Lingeren be flexible if you had an idea? Would he listen to you or not?
Man, I was just a tight end. I wasn't involved in
I think in the playoffs, maybe we did a little bit of audibling if they would stack the box. I mean, imagine that a team would stack the box.
Yeah, it's rare.
But Rex could kind of audible and send the ends out with pass type stuff, and we had some teams on that.
What about you?
What's that?
You are?
Yeah, I actually, white 90 was our offense. We were always double tight wing. That was it. Wing right, wing left, strong wing right, strong wing left. And if they were loaded up and I thought I could hit the tight end on a flag, it was white 90 or white 80 if I wanted the right tight end. Well, my left tight end was Sean Weimer. I always picked him. Yeah. And white 90. And just boom. I mean, it was open every time because they were so run heavy. So we did audible, believe it or not.
What about the time you talked Coach Lindgren into doing the drop kick? How'd that work out for you?
I don't know if he remembers that, but I kicked off with a straight toe shoe. I won't tell the whole, but I could kick it. I'd kick it far, and at practice all the time I'd screw around and drop kick it with my straight toe shoe and kick it a mile. And so we're playing Ottawa Hills, and we're beating them by like 50 over here. And I said to Coach Linger, and I said, hey, if we score, can I drop kick the extra point? He said, no. I said, come on. I said, I'll make it. And he's, you better make it if we do this. And so I go, I will. So basically, you're back in like shotgun formation, and, you catch it, and you drop it, and kick it like an extra point. And I do it, and I kick the hell out of this thing. And like, I don't see the ball. It's like that tee shot where you're going, anybody else see it? And it's on our highlight video from that year. And that ball went 40 yards in the air and like a yard behind me. And I thought, oh my God, you talk about doing the jog of shame back to the sideline. And I'm like, he's going to kill me. Now, luckily, we were smoking him, but I get over to the sideline, thought he was going to just kill me, and he didn't. He just looked at me and shook his head and probably said something like, never again, And I never asked again.
LC guys, your playoff run until the state final was pretty uneventful, 45-23 over Macomb, rolled by Crestline and Lehman Catholic. What do you remember from kind of the first 3 rounds of that playoff run, guys?
I just felt like we were prepared because of our regular season and the league that year. I mean, those games, our first 3 games in the playoffs, I felt like we're a cakewalk, really. We were winning big in those games pretty early, I think, every week, if I remember correctly. Now, just a testament to these guys, Wauseon and Pillier and Archbold and Delta and Patrick. I mean, every week we had a battle. And our playoff run, it was just, till the finals, I mean, we were very well prepared because of our competition.
Guys?
I would go back to the physicality of it too, because I think it was Macomb, they had to stop the game, what was it, 11, 12 times because of injury to the opposite team. So again, iron sharpens iron, and coming out of that league, like Keith said, it just prepared us physically for a completely different style of football, and that became obvious when we hit the playoffs.
Very good. Josh, what do you remember about the tournament run?
And to Keith's point, it just felt like we could do whatever we want offensively those first 3 games. We just feel like the first time we got the ball, we drive down the field and score, and the games were never in doubt, the first 3 games.
Well, I cheated. I went back and watched some of the games on Tiger Sports Live. The Bryan game, week 9, they're inside the 10-yard line, ready to score, and Josh tips a pass away in the end zone to win that one. And then
he shot the band after that, too, by the way.
He's right in the front row with the band. And then week 10, the Archbold game, we're down 17-15, I think 8 minutes left in the 4th quarter. So we're 2 plays away probably from 6-4 and not having the conversation right now. But these guys were right. Once we got in the playoffs, I think that we knew that we'd have a pretty good chance just because of what our league was all about.
Yeah.
Wow.
You get to Massillon. Describe that week, that feeling, the lead up to the game, and kind of that day, guys, whoever wants to start.
Go ahead.
That's a long time ago. You asked me to remember all that. For us, it was and for you guys too, I'm sure, but it was the whole town coming together. It was a lot of excitement, and a lot of planning. Everybody, our coaches and our boosters and everybody figuring out buses and hotels or whatever the heck we did. I can't even remember, but it was. We were practicing at the Glass Bowl, so we were practicing in Toledo at the University of Toledo. It's a whole different thing. But we came out there and we were ready to play. We played good defense, and I don't know, something you'll never forget, but you kind of forget the details, if you know what I mean. You remember the couple big plays that happened here. For me, I probably remember the mistakes I made more than anything else, but man, it was fun for our town. A lot of people still talk about it, even though I don't live there anymore either. I've been away from Wauseon for 30 years, 35 years, whatever, however long it's been, 30. And but everybody still wants to talk about it, and it was a fun time. I remember our tight end who, we got on the turnpike with our team buses, and he says, man, the turnpike's going to take in a big buck this weekend, aren't they? Because everybody's town is just all down the buses, so it was neat.
I remember that we fumbled I think Pat fumbled the opening kickoff on like the 20-yard line, and Cory and I are standing beside each other, and their crowd's going crazy, and we look at each other at the exact same time, roll our eyes, like, who cares? We just thought we were going to win. That was one thing I remember, like, I fumbled the opening kickoff, who cares, it's no big deal, but if you watch that game back, we got hosed in that game. We should have won that game by about 3 scores. There's a couple fumbles that we picked up and scored. We scored a couple times that they called horrible holding calls on us. That game wasn't as close as what the final score was, I will say that. But I think the cool thing, sitting there watching you guys play and wanting you guys to win, and even Montpelier, I think they played, 2 games before that, right?
Regional final. They got the regional final.
I think we must have went to that game too, but, I guess, I don't know if it's the same way anymore. I think we had so many friends from all the different towns that you wanted them to win. At least we did. You guys might not have wanted us to win. We wanted you to win. and it was a good following. Right?
I gotta go to Wauseon. Pick up my daughter.
Coach, good seeing you.
I'm gonna tell you straight, you're the best athlete, football player that I've ever coached against.
I appreciate
I'm gonna
that.
tell you.
American Freedom Energy in Grandma's General Store off Route 24 on State Route 109, just south of Liberty Center, now has 88 unleaded fuel and is your one-stop shop for fuel, food, drinks, and much, much more, including locally raised meats and home-baked goods. American Freedom Energy in Grandma's General Store is proud to support Black Swamp Football and is the host of the Black Swamp Football podcast, football show, and Saturday mornings Rise and Rewind. Stop in and see Glenn and Greg today and make American Freedom Energy and Grandma's General Store a part of your everyday routine.
Who says a college degree is the only path to a fulfilling career? At the Gherkin Companies, we offer rewarding livelihoods with or without a degree. Gherkin provides a generous benefits package, continuous training, top-notch equipment, and a culture that rewards effort. We're looking for rock-solid performers to help build and reinforce the region's infrastructure. Whether you have construction experience or are just starting your career, apply now at gherkincompanies.com/career.
Welcome back to our KK Collision football show. Finishing up here. Coach Strock, go ahead. I've asked enough questions here lately.
Coach Langer, it was great. He tells Cory, you're the best athlete I've ever coached against, and Cory goes, did you vote for me for all week? So, yeah, that's going back, and if you know, you know, but it was a competitive league back then, man, and you had guys like Coach Langer and John Downey at Archbold, and Mark Emmons, and none of those guys were going to back down. Yeah. So, some of those league meetings maybe got contentious in that as guys are fighting for their own players and things like that. But I don't really have anything else, Lynn, to ask them. I could go all over the place with these guys, but I just have such a history, literally, with every guy sitting here.
Yeah.
And I do want to ask Cory. Cory, you were probably, and I mean this as a friend, respectfully. But I think a lot of people are enamored by this. You're probably the most confident athlete that I ever competed against, high school or college. And I told Lynn this Saturday on her podcast. You always backed it up, okay? And you were so confident. What was the source of your confidence? And how did you make everything you ever did look so easy? Whether it was shooting a basketball, throwing a baseball, throwing a running a football. Talk about where your confidence came from.
Well, that comes back to what we've all been talking about. It comes back to, you guys we're all talking about great competition that we grew up with. I did as well. But Keith and I were talking when I walked in about, heck, Keith and I were wrestling each other when we were 6th grade, or 6 years old, 6, 8 years old in wrestling tournaments. When we were little, dads didn't like each other, yelling at each other, cocking up, mouthing off to each other. I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, but there was a lot of my confidence came from winning at an early age in a lot of different sports, whether it be swimming, whether it be wrestling, whether it be basketball, football, baseball, any of them. But then it also came from, and just to be totally honest, it came from dislike of our competition, whether it's Liberty Center or Archibald, or we were all, for me, all you guys. I mean, there were a couple that we would run over every year, but all you guys were such big rivals. I felt like everybody was a rival, and the confidence for me was the people around me, the guys I played with, because we had some good athletes. They've been big, strong kids, and the guys that you would, if you had to fight your worst enemy, you'd want those people with you in the back alley, in the dark alley, which we've done that in Napoleon before at those alleys. You were probably there. You were probably on our side.
What about at that time?
But no, I don't know where any confidence came, but it had to come from having a lot of good teammates in a lot of different sports. I mean, it wasn't just one sport that there were 10 guys that were really good. I mean, we had a core group of people that were good athletes at everything they did. It doesn't matter. And, you're fighting whether you're throwing horseshoes in the backyard or, anything, spitting sunflower seeds in a cup. Just is what it is.
I'd like to know, and this is always one of Lynn's favorite questions, but you guys all played with some tough guys. Tyson, Cory, over your high school football career, who was the toughest, baddest, nastiest Wauseon Indian that you would take in the foxhole with you? That you didn't want to get hit by him in practice, you didn't want to run into him, they were just bad. You can even give one or two, maybe a third.
I would say 3. In our 50s package, I always had to block Fraker, and I was fortunate enough that he wasn't trying to kill me. I think he realized that if he went hard, that I might not get to play for us. I mean, he was just a monster.
What was his first name?
Jake Fraker. But Knifer and Meyer were both tough as nails. Both of them are my linebackers. And I remember my junior year, my dad asked me, is there anybody you think should be playing? I said, Jeremy Knifer is an absolute stud. And my dad was like, really? Jeremy and I were always really good friends growing up and would beat the tar out of each other from about 5th grade on. We'd get in a fist fight almost every day. And his mom would show up knocking on my door. Jeremy's got a bloody nose again. Next day, my mom would be like, why do you have a bloody nose? Well, Jeremy and I were fighting again. The next day, we'd go do it again. Every day. He was one tough dude, and he showed it when he got to play his senior year. He was phenomenal. He was really good. And Ben, again, I mean, I know he was only there 1 year, but I'd probably pick him in a fight.
Cory, do you agree with the 3 Tyson said? Give us some tough guys at Wauseon.
I do. I agree with all 3 of those. Tony Spatafor also, we've talked about a lot tonight. But I don't know, I guess I really never thought about getting hit by any of them. Because they couldn't catch me.
Keith, some of the toughest guys you had to knock heads with in practice?
That's a great question, Tori. One sitting right here, right next to you to your right, was Jason Miller's probably one of the toughest hitters, especially in practice, that I never wanted to go up against. Quick story about Jason. He wasn't able to play the first 8 games of our season, our senior year, and he stuck it out and practiced every single day, and ended up getting to play 6 games, the last 2 of the season, and our 4. And I thought, who else would do that? That's pretty odd. He was a hell of a hitter. Kind of had his head down a lot when he hit, but it was okay back then.
Still got neck issues today.
Ken Fetterman, and this is going back a couple different teams, but he was a tough guy, and so was Norm Zeider. Norm Zeider and I were linebackers together my sophomore year. He was just a slobber knocker. So those couple guys that stand out.
Can't argue with any of those guys.
Yeah, so I played defense only in '93, so I got to play scout team against those guys. So this is easy for me. Keith and Chris Moore. I actually asked to play linebacker, that way I was closer to the line rather than give them a running start before they got to me.
Yeah, to Ryan's point, we really didn't get to go against each other much. I don't know the Keith, because we're always on the...
Most of us went two ways.
Yeah, we went two ways.
Yeah.
But definitely Jason, he wasn't, like Keith said, he wasn't playing, but he was practicing. And he was definitely going full go. And one of the underclassmen on the reserve team with Toby Lake, too. He'd always, whenever Toby was across from me, I knew I had to go hard.
Jason, besides you, who else was tough?
Well, I can't give enough credit to that senior team. There were guys like Cody Kessler, John Mills. They would give their entire body in a play. I just watched the City of Lehman game last week, and one of the big runs Chris Ward had, Cody kicked out two guys at one time on a pole. It was just incredible. They were all tough. Josh knocked me for a loop in practice, but my leg came up and hit him between the legs, so Linger thought I hurt him. But I think, probably Keith, and there was a play we had where him and I met in the hole in practice, and Keith had some words for me that I can't say on this, and then after practice, we played Madden football over to somebody's house, so we were good to go, but that's just how practices went.
Jason and I, for every game, would grab each other. You remember this, Jason?
Oh, yeah.
We'd grab each other's face masks, and we'd headbutt each other 3 times, as hard as we could. I kid you not, I was seeing stars before every game. But we did it, and it's probably why I can't remember half these games.
Well, and Keith was our kicker, our punter, our kick returner, our punt returner, running back, and linebacker, so it probably wasn't very smart of me to do it.
No concussion protocol back then, though.
I have one last thing. 93 season, you can go through the 80s, 90s, NWOAL. There was a state championship caliber team. Liberty Center is doing that now. We don't have it to the number of, like that 93 season. Montpelier could have easily won or got to a state championship game. And Tyson, you've touched on this, that it's changed. How do we get back to that type of day? And you're seeing, especially at the smaller schools anymore, the rosters are shrinking. We have less kids playing football. How do we get back to maybe those days and more kids playing football? Because I think it's important, and we're losing kids to football. And having you guys here tonight talking about your experience is so special. I don't know that kids these days understand how good the NWOAL was in the 80s and 90s in those days, when each week was a challenge. You didn't have an off week. Any thoughts on can we get back to that type of day where more kids are playing football?
I guess I'll speak on Liberty Center's behalf. They got it going on. I think they're doing everything right, and it's an absolute dynasty. It's fun to watch, and it's awesome. I mean, it's cool. It's cool to see. I don't know. I don't know that it'll ever get back to where it is. I think kids are different. Coaches are different. I just think it's quite a bit different than it was when we played. I really do. And primarily with the kids. I think I just don't think they did things the way that we did back then. Some of that's good.
Is there any way to get back to it, Tyson? Any way to get back to it, or are we too far gone?
I don't see it happening in our lifetime.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. I hope it does, but I don't see that happening in my lifetime, at least, for sure.
I think if you can keep the youth together early on and have that brotherhood I feel like we all had, if you can keep kids sticking together and have a common goal, maybe it's not football, maybe it's a different sport or whatever you excel at, or but if you can stick together as a group early on in these smaller communities in Northwest Ohio, I think you can go. I think that's kind of what Liberty's got right now. The youth program's pretty good. A lot of kids are playing football early on. And I don't see that in other places as much, but I'm with Tyson. I think that there's too many choices right now, and there's too many other things going on. And just, if you're not good at something, you can go do something else. And, it takes those kids that maybe aren't good early on to stick with it and have all those kids with you your senior year by the time. If you could start early in the youth and try to have some sort of camaraderie and a brotherhood, sisterhood, or whatever it might be, that's your best shot, I think, as a community. Yeah.
That's a good answer, Keith. It's a good answer. Cory, any thoughts on that?
I think it's a lot of what Keith and Tyson said. I think everybody has a responsibility in it. Everybody should have their hands in it somehow, whether it's parents, whether it's coaches, whether it's the NWOAL itself, whether it's, the district commissioners, the OHSAA, and nothing against, expanding more sports or, expanding divisions or whatever they do. It's just it's almost making it, it's almost letting the kids know that it's okay to be less competitive. So, hey, if you're, like Keith said, if you're not a very good football player, then, go over and play soccer. They got a spot for you, or, go play, which is fine. Nothing wrong with those sports. But I feel like parents are a lot like that too. If their kid's not getting enough time, it's just so easy to quit what you're doing and go do something else, or, change your attitude from this sport to that sport, and I think that stinks. So I think it's everybody's responsibility. I think there's somebody that needs to take, charge of it, whether it's the commissioner of the OHSAA or your superintendent or your athletic director or whoever it is, or, even the coach. I mean, you're talking about some coaches like Coach Langren, Coach Evans, Coach Downey, two of the three I never liked, but they did it right, and they kept you guys interested. They gave you guys a chance, and that's what keeps things competitive. And until that happens, which Liberty Center has that going on now, because they have first of all, players that are still here, that are now coaches that have sons and daughters that are playing different sports, and you guys know what it takes. But it can happen, but it's gonna take somebody or a group of people to really change some things in any town.
Very good. Guys, any thoughts along those lines?
I think those are great points, and just like in life, right? The best teams, the best organizations are led from within. You have a coach that sets the tone. But one of the things I've noticed after being gone from Liberty Center for so long is the culture that's built from the senior leadership. I've got a nephew that's on the football team. He came out of one of the grocery stores with candy in his hand a couple weeks ago, and the seniors saw him and called him out on it. And it's something little, but it's being maintained from within down, and they understand how important the culture is that they control. And I think that's really important, because the coaches can only see so much, but when you've got the upperclassmen taking leadership, and I think we saw that our senior year too. Ryan was a sophomore, his brother was a sophomore, we had Nathan Soto, who was an incredible player, and we took these guys in like they were seniors, and it really established. And then to that point too, I remember my senior year spending the night over Keith's house. He had bunk beds with his brother, and his brother had written on the one bunk bed, he had the bottom bunk, state champions 1997. and it's just a belief that it starts, and it starts and it bleeds down.
It's a great question. I really don't know the answer. It's definitely a lot different today than what it was back in '93. I think, what Keith said, you can't do it alone. I mean, you almost have to start them young with a group of kids that are going to be interested, keep them interested to have a chance, I think. Hopefully it's something that can be fixed. It's a great game. It's a team game. So you got to have a lot of kids that are willing to do it.
Ryan, I want you to speak just a second longer on this, because you were part of these great 90s teams and stuff, but you're also living it now as a coach, and you have been in this community for a long time. There's a lot of great communities around here, but why is Liberty Center kind of a cut above right now and you heard Tyson and Cory allude to it, why is Liberty Center kind of the standard? Because so much has changed in other places, but in Liberty Center, it doesn't seem like it has so much. You got any thoughts on that?
You know, we've talked about the community. I think it starts with that. Keith alluded to the youth program and having kids involved early on. You know, and Casey does a fantastic job right now with everything he's got going on. It's almost like it's something that's been built, so you just don't want to screw it up, you know, to be honest. And it's kind of like a passing of the torch to the next group. We've been fortunate to have some really good senior classes here the last few years and sort of established what we expect, and just kind of, I don't want to say that we stay out of the way of them, but there's a lot of things now where, you know, we just kind of stay out of the way. You know, they know what they're doing. And I think Cory had said earlier too that things run in cycles, you know, so hopefully some of these teams that are a little bit down will get a run of athletes and can kind of build things back up.
Very good, Ryan. Josh?
I think it's got to be fun. You know, the stats show if they're not having fun, by 12 they're going to drop out. And, you know, like Tyson said, they were playing baseball on their own. How many thousands of football games do we play with each other? It was just fun. And, you know, if too many parents get involved, it can start to not be fun. So just got to keep it fun to a point.
Very good.
Yeah, great answer. I'm good. You good, Coach Strott?
I'm good. Just what a joy and a pleasure to see these guys, man. And what an honor.
Yeah. Honor. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to chat with us. And, you know, it was my childhood putting on Dave Clark or Larry Christie. And I remember listening to your state championship game and Colin Lane's kick and listen to Larry Christie, that call. And you know, you guys' run with Dave Clark. We'd turn on the radio when I was a kid to listen to the Montpelier games because they had David Rose. You want to know what David Rose was doing on a Friday night? I remember that. We'd be outside and my parents would say, we got to see what David Rose is doing tonight. We'd put on the radio and listen to that. But truly an honor. Thank you guys for what you've done for football in Northwest Ohio and all the memories that you have given folks like me. We appreciate it, and thank you guys for taking the time to do this.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. We'll be back next week with former Wauseon coach Mark Emmons.